Okay, part 3 in this little vibe code series on trying to automate a video editing pipeline that does a whole bunch of stuff at once. So the last video was literally a one-shot creation from Claude Code of all the spec that I discussed with it and documented in that kind of master PRD file. Watch the last part to get an overview of that. So we generated this, and I don't think we ran any code. Between the end of the last video and this, I've just checked a couple of things. I needed to do a bit of setup in VS Code. I've actually run the first few scripts just to see what's happening. I really wanted to see kind of the first things happening. So there's a couple of problems. I'm going to talk through those, and we're going to get to the silence detection, because that's kind of the interesting one. So let's start from the beginning. What I've done is I've created this kind of test scripts file. So I want to be able to run each of these scripts individually to debug. And I could probably get Claude to do this, but I kind of want to know how it works. And having found the problems I have, I'm not sure Claude would give it the right treatment if kind of left to its own devices. So this is where you make the judgment call. You know, do I let Claude do everything, or do I step in a bit? Maybe I should test that. Anyway, so it's got this idea of this Preflight script, which I actually really like. So that's working. So that's just running this. So if I do that, it's like, okay, have you got an input file? How big is it? Is FFmpeg and FFprobe, which is part of FFmpeg, installed? Are your API keys present? So I set up my OpenAI key. I created an Anthropic one, which I didn't have. And then it's read the source video, so it knows its resolution, frame rate, and length. So this is this test video that I've got here. And this is really cool. Estimated whisper cost. So I don't know how it's done that, but it's calculated the token cost for what the audio transcription is going to be. So it's going to hit me for ½ cent for transcribing 1 minute of audio. So let's do the math. 2 minutes is going to be a cent. So what's that? I can't do that math in my head. It's not going to be much. Like an hour of footage, we're going to be under $1, which is fine. Duration 1 minute. Disk space, that's cool. So it's going to show me, you know, hey, your ridiculous video production agent is chewing up too much space. You need to do something about that. Disk space required gigabyte. So I'm guessing that's going to make an estimate. I don't know how it's going to do that, but it will be based on the input file size, because it's only 6 meg. It's nothing. So I'm guessing that's why that's saying 0. Bumpers found. Don't know what that is. We'll check that out later. Immediately, what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to create a file up here to do, and I'm going to start adding stuff to this, changes I want to make. So one is going to be cleanup process, meaning when do videos working folders get deleted? When am I truly done with them? So what I mean by that is the way this runs is you give it this video, and in theory, when this is all working, it'll just do everything I've asked it to, and it's putting it all in this sort of workspace. It's got an ID for the video, which is test 01, and then you can see under that each of these scripts is generating kind of either assets or intermediary audio or video files. That's all going to be in there. You can see that there's going to be the content, the manifest, what it needs to do, presumably for the shorts, that'll be, and then, you know, recompose is where I'm up to. So this will be like a working folder. So some of this will contain outputs I want. Other bits will be like, okay, don't need that anymore, can get rid of it once I'm done. But if you imagine I'm kicking out, I don't know how many videos, and at what frequency, it's going to pile up with videos. So some kind of management for cleaning that up, and it not just filling up a hard drive and you know, not knowing what's what, is going to be something I want to tag onto this once it's working. So Preflight, all working, no problems. Next one, process footage. So what does process footage do? It's mainly about audio. So as it said in the comments at the top, and I haven't touched any of this by one line, I'll show you in a minute. It extracts the audio, it normalizes the loudness. So what that's doing is, if I've not got my mic levels right when I'm recording, it's going to push it up as high as it can without distorting the audio. So this is a standard kind of audio sweetening practice. A lot of stuff does this automatically, but no harm in running it. If there's other post-processing that occurred, in my case through OBS, this might just tweak things, make it a little bit better. Next is done noise reduction. This has been a problem, and then EQ. So I've run this, and what I'm doing with Claude is I'm essentially going for each one, hey, give me a terminal command I can run to test the whichever script in isolation with the auto trim test movie file video. So I've just been incrementing this, going through the scripts, chucking this in here, and it's spitting me out the scripts. I paste them in here, so I've got a record, and then I can run them. So this job ID is fake, which is fine. It's all going to be under here. So we're up to number 1, process footage. So this is bad. As I say, the audio quality is really bad. What I'll do, I'll show you or demo what this sounds like. So the problem is here, it's running these filters, and you can see it's left great comments. Build an audio filter chain, high pass at 80 hertz to remove rumble. So what that's doing is everything below 80 hertz, which is a really low frequency, it's just going to cut off. So that isn't low enough that it's going to cut off bass you may or would want to hear, but like any kind of rumble that would be unpleasant to listen to, that's just going to cut it off. So high pass filter is a very standard thing in audio processing. FFT denoiser for background noise reduction. I think FFT stands for fast Fourier transform, back from my math days in uni. This is bad, so that's this line. I've commented it out for the moment. And then that loudness normalization. So let me uncomment that, and we'll run the full thing, and you can hear what it sounds like. What I'll do first, I'll play you the source video so you can hear what it sounds like before it's processed. Then we'll run that, and you can hear it. Where's the original gone? There, test videos. Losing my brains. So this is what the original sounds like. Let's shrink that down because we'll come back to this and play it again. This is a test. And what I need this to do is provide enough content for automatic transcription. So I'll stop it there. I go on like that for a minute. Couple of things to notice in that already. I'm leaving gaps on purpose because I want to test the trim silence part of all this. The other thing to notice is there already is, I guess, what I'd call ducking. Maybe it's not ducking. I may have the wrong word. But the OBS recording or filters I've got set up is already kind of cutting out noise. There's some noise threshold I've got in OBS that's doing part of that low-level noise detection already. So it's not really a problem, but it's just something to be aware of, that we're kind of getting this script to repeat work that's already done. So again, if you just remember what you just heard, it's like I'm just speaking for a bit, a little bit of space, speaking for it, speaking for a bit, a little bit of space. So we'll run this audio processing. That's this one. Pop it in here. Run. Processed audio. This ran first time as well, as in there was nothing wrong with the script. It did what it was supposed to do first time. But if you listen to what it's done...
This is a test. And what I need is...
Sounds freaking awful. So that's going to be that line. Okay, let's fix it. So this noise reduction is too severe, and ruining the audio. I'll just do that. You can see one line selected. So again, this is another reason I like working in the IDEs over using the terminal, because if you're doing stuff like this and you just select the line, you're giving it the context immediately. So I haven't got to copy paste. I'm sure there's probably a way of doing that with the terminal setup, but for me, it's just a little bit quicker. I'm expecting this to just change this. It'll just go, oh, it's removed it wholesale. Interesting. I thought it would at least go, oh, if you lower this value to this, it'll be better. Maybe it's going to bring it back. While that's editing, another thing to mention, and I mentioned this in the first video, I've sorted out the Git for this repository, and I committed everything it changed in that that last video. So the baseline of all the edits have been committed. So all the changes that are happening now is either stuff I'm doing or like this, where Claude's going to edit the code. And as I said last time, if it starts making bigger and bigger edits and you're like, whoa, what's it done? The diff view in Git, which I'll show you in VS Code in a minute, is a really nice way and quick way to figure out, okay, what the hell has Claude done? Now, if you're not a coder and you don't really want to understand code, and you're like, no, I'm a vibe coder, I don't want to get involved with the code. What I would do is, if I could convince you just to learn Git, so that you were able to go, okay, I'm going to get a change from Claude, commit it, and then work on the next change and have the diffs between each of the bits of work you do ready to review. You can ask Claude, hey, review all your changes and tell me what they've done, which it should be doing anyway when it finishes, to say, oh, I did this and I did this. But it's helpful sometimes to just understand it at a code level, because sometimes it can run amok. I've had so many times where it's gone, oh, that didn't work, I'll try this. Oh, that didn't work, and I'll try this, and it just leaves a mess. So there's been a few instances, not many, but there's been a few instances where I'll just go, no, hit the stop button and trash everything it's done and go, hey, you got confused. It can crash, so you can crash and have like half the work done, and then you're like, whoa, where do we go from here? And that's usually where I go, right, kill it, abandon it, start from scratch. So it's just decided to get rid of the noise removal, which is interesting. Maybe I should have asked it to improve it. I'm not going to do this now. I don't need to do this on the video. I'm going to reinstate the line. So all I've done there is just undo Command Z, and that's brought it back. So the edit Claude's made, I can just undo Control Command Z and bring it back. Hash to comment it out. I'm going to leave that and move on. Now, these Git changes. So over here in VS Code, and this will be the same, I think, in anti-gravity, because it's a fork of VS Code. This is showing me all the changes, right? So we can look through what's happened here. So settings. This is where I've set up Claude's plugins. Claude onboarding, that's just the notes I'm making for this whole repo, because there's going to be more than one project in here. These test scripts is me editing and getting these test scripts one by one. To do, you just saw me create. Now code changes. So these are code changes since Claude's first commit. That's me commenting out the noise. This was a bug. I was going to get to this next. So when we get to recompose video, I found a bug. I went, hey, this isn't working, and it went and fixed it, and that works. So that's a bug fix. Interesting. So it's actually fixed that in both script 3 and script 9, despite me only asking it for script 3. And then finally, you can see processed audio and recompose. The outputs of this script are being included in the git command, which we don't want. So what I'm going to do is come back here to Workspace, I right click on Workspace and we should see, we don't. I was hoping to see add to gitignore. That's fine. Let's do copy path. So I'm going copy relative path. Come down the bottom here, .gitignore. Come to the end. Paste that in. And that will exclude everything from this Workspace folder from being committed. So I don't want to be pushing all these videos and intermediary files into Git. That's going to be a problem. I'm going to host on GitHub. They're not going to be happy with me slamming huge videos in. It's not data I want in Git. Eventually this will run on a directory outside of the code, probably in a OneDrive folder or something. So the way I'm thinking about this is like, I do a video, just drag it into OneDrive, it hits a folder, and then I'll have my PC, which is actually sitting by the side of me, will get that change. I'll have a file watcher and it will go, oh, a raw video file's been dragged in, and it will just run this process and produce all these outputs and, you know, send them on their way. That's how I am thinking about it in my head. So we don't want Workspace in Git. So by doing that, if I now go back to there, you can see those files are gone. So I'm going to push all this in, we'll stage, and we'll go fixes, scripts, 1 through 3. Not the best commit message. Come on, guys. It's not that important for me because we're going to keep a fair chain of velocity here, and I'm not going to need to go back over these commits with a fine-tooth comb too much, and need a bullet by bullet list of what's happened and what the changes were. This is something you could get a hook for, get Claude to go, hey, write me the commit message, or that kind of thing. If you want to do that, I think that's well worth doing in sort of teams, organizations. For me, I don't need that. Convince me otherwise. So where were we? We've done script 1. Now we're on the fun part. So process footage, I'm saying bad. I mean, I'm gonna create another to-do for this. I'll call this bugs. I'll call that features. And I'll say revisit noise removal in script 1. So yeah, it's kind of low priority. So generate silence timestamp. So you saw me run this at the end of the last video. So that was the only thing I ran that I was kind of interested in. So that spat out these numbers. It's saying, hey, it's in seconds between 0 when the video starts and about 600 milliseconds, 615. There's silence, and then so on and so forth. So this was the bit I was interested in. The next script, hence I've written review at next stage, recompose video, is going to chop all those silence gaps out. So this is where the fun begins. I went to Claude with this and went, hey, write me the script for step 3. And it went, oh, no, you need to run steps 1, 2, and 3 to get these outputs. And I'm like, yeah, I've done that. So must have steps 1, 2, and 3 complete. Then I don't need to run those again. Suffice to say, it expects these files, the timestamp data, and the processed audio in order to run. So we can run that. And there you go, keeping 20 seconds, reducing to 44.43 after cutting silence. And then we get the output. Now, this is where the fun begins. Let me play you what this sounds like. If you remember a few minutes ago when I played the source video, I've still got it behind, had all those gaps. I'll just play a couple of seconds at the start to remind you. This is a test. And what I need this to do is... So that was the original video. This is it after chopping silence. Now, again, like, apart from a couple of little bugs, Claude has got this far just on me having a discussion, and it's been able to do this, which is kind of cool. It's not the most complex thing in the world because it's delegating to FFmpeg, which is really doing the heavy lifting. But it's understood architecturally what I want to get out of this to get to this point. So, thanks AI. Here's what it did.
This is a test, and what I need this to do is provide in the context for automatic transcription, figure out what I'm saying, and then also detect gaps of silence.
So 2 problems here. First is I didn't regenerate the audio from that bad audio, so I'm actually going to do it again. So if I run that, I commented out that bad line. Let me just double check it's fixed.
This is a test.
It's not fixed. I ran detect silence. I didn't run the generate audio, which is number 1, process footage. Let's try it again.
This is a test.
That's better. Then we can run number 3. Ooh, interesting. So I was wondering whether that would actually write the file because I've got it open, but it has. Let's listen to it again.
This is a test, and what I need this to do is provide in the context for automatic transcription, figure out.
So it's working, but it's kind of too severe, which is what I thought it would be. So there's a couple of changes I'm going to want to make to this. First, I'm going to have a little look at the code. So recompose video. What's this doing? Strategy: use FFmpeg trim atrium filter complex to cut silent segments from video and audio simultaneously. Then concat all kept segments. Then optionally apply the LUT. Didn't even get to the LUT yet. Shall I chuck in the LUT? No, let's not do that. I'll do that in the next video. Suffice to say, it's not very complicated. So where does this start? Main. So it's going to go argument parser. So that's just going, hey, what job, input, which config, load the config, run. What does run do? While open, silence data. So that loads that JSON file with the timestamps. That's loading this. I'm not an expert on Python, but I know enough to read it. Video. Loads that, gets video metadata, so that it needs to know the length of the video. Ignore that. Build keep segments. Interesting. So that's going for silence in silence. Yeah, this is the bit I wanted to change. Interesting. Minimum 10 millisecond segment to be kept worth playing. Final segment after last silence. So there's a couple of tolerances here. So actually what I want to do is as simple as changing these values. 10 milliseconds. So I'm thinking like half a second. So I could just change that to 0.5 and I think that'll be what I want. So it's going to go final segment after last silence. Maybe I'll leave that one. I'm not sure what that's going to do. But this, yeah, see, look at that. It already knew. 500 milliseconds segment to be kept worth keeping. You know what? I'm going to undo this because if there's an overlap, like if there's a silence duration that's really close to another one, and I just change this to 500 milliseconds, it could overlap and cause the code to break. So I'm going to get Claude to do this because too late in the evening for me to be thinking this hard. Then what's it going to do? So that's the only bit I think this is going to change. And then this run FFmpeg. Original video, process video. Yeah, I'm interested in how FFmpeg works. So that's why I'm kind of looking at this, because it's an incredibly powerful utility. The more I find out about it, the more I realize it can do. I just used it for converting like old videos to MP4s, but it can do so much more. But let's get back on track and fix up this problem. So essentially, I'm going to write the change I want. So I'm going to say, let's go back into test scripts. So really we're here, the generate silence timestamps is the problem. The recompose video, we could fix this in either, because we could make a rule in recompose video that kind of pushes the timestamps around, or we can just adjust the timestamps. I think the right place to do it is in the timestamps. So I'm going to say this. The text silence script generates silence timestamps that are too aggressive and make the audio too rapid, fast-paced to listen to. Please implement the following changes. In fact, I'm going to put this in plan mode and get Claude to review this. I'd like to make a change to this as follows. Like this. So I'm trying to be less kind of do this because I want Claude to tell me, hey, yeah, not a bad idea, Chris, but I got a better idea. So 1, ignore any silence under 1 second. So I think 1 second, it's not worth cutting if it's under 1 second. And we can play with that. And I'll say that, make this configurable so I can change it. And then 2, buffer at least, I'll say 50 milliseconds. let me be awkward and go 70 milliseconds before and after silent, non-silent segments to avoid a fast cut from the preceding and following audio. So copy that, come back in here, and then I'm going to go to plan mode, pop that in. Let's see what Claude thinks. In fact, what I should have written at the bottom, in fact, let me stop it. Oh, that's interesting. You can usually double click. Any other suggestions? Question mark. That'll get Claude to have a think. How are we doing for time? Seeing how long I've been recording. Coming up on 29 minutes. I'm looking at OBS Studio. So I have OBS recording. It doesn't show when it's being recorded, which is kind of nice. I'll probably make some videos on OBS Studio and show you kind of how I do it. Using 4.4% CPU to do the record. Lower than I thought it would be. Okay, these are simple config changes. Let me also suggest one more thing. Merging silences that are close together. 2 silent segments are only 200 milliseconds apart. Cutting between them creates a microstutter rather than a clean cut. That's brilliant. Yeah. So if I go like, presumably, like if I've made some, or a click or something, that would get rid of it. And I just cannot think of a scenario where some little small noise, which I make many of, I'd want to keep. You can see up the top, it's done the configs. Interesting, like I put this in plan mode. This is another thing that's giving me the shits about the Claude Code extension. GitHub Copilot doesn't do this. Like GitHub Copilot, and I think they've actually done a really good job with Copilot. That has this, right? So agent ask plan. And the thing with GitHub Copilot is you've got all the models. So if you're like, I don't like Sonnet today, jump over to Gemini or Codex. I should try Codex. I'm hearing okay things about it. But yeah, this Claude extension is not, I don't know. I'm more used to the GitHub Copilot extension. And I use Sonnet within it. So it's like I'm using Claude in GitHub Copilot, and it seems to be cheaper as well. So yeah, there we go. So that's going to do that. So it's going to do a bunch of edits. So I'm just going to let it go. And it's going to change the script. So this is where those git changes become useful, because now I can come in here and I can see what it's done. So it's made 2 changes. It's changed these config values. I obviously didn't read its document on what it had actually set up. All this is configurable through here. Great. and then detect silence. Okay, let's have a look at this. Merge consecutive silent segments whose gap is smaller than min gap seconds. Prevents microstutters from creating a tiny island of audio between two silences. Brilliant. Okay, done. For silence in silences, gap if start minus end is less than min gap. Bam them together. Retunable knobs, min duration, padding seconds, merge gap. Great. The merge is the only impactful suggestion. Without it, you can get a situation where FFmpeg detects silence, 200 millisecond word silence, and the cuts leave a tiny clip word hanging in the middle. Merging those into a single silence produces a much cleaner result. Okay, so we're on script 2, so I'm going to have to run detect silence again. So we'll do that. What I'll do for giggles is if I keep the timestamps open, you'll see it change when it runs. So just look at the text. I'm going to hit return. Yep. Whoa. So that's chopped a lot down. So that went from, I don't know how many, to 5. I think the first time it ran it was like 20. Yeah, look, you can see it up there. Found 23 silent segments, 20 seconds total. And now it's gone down to 5 silent segments for 8.5 seconds total, which is probably about right, because there was a big gap I left in the middle. So let's render and see how we go. So this is why I wanted all these scripts individually to test, because I'm like, okay, cool. We fixed silence timestamps up. We fix generate silence timestamps up, assuming it's okay. Move on to recompose. You know, to go to the next one. I want to look at the LUTs next, so we'll stay in video. It will stay in recompose video. Then we'll move on to 4, 5, 6, all the way to the end. Once they're all tested, then I'm going to want to start chucking much bigger videos through this whole thing, and we'll find a whole bunch of new issues. This is how it goes. So let's go to Finder and see what it sounds like. This is a test, and what I need this to do is provide enough content for automatic transcription to figure out what I'm saying, and then also detect gaps of silence at different durations, and see if I can auto trim those out. I'm outside, there's a little bit of background noise, birds, etc. So I'll be interested if it can detect the bass noise level to trim. I'm just going to shut up for a minute so I can see how low that is. Yeah, pretty low. So about, pretty high, about minus 30 to minus 25 dB. And I'm talking, and that's going up to like minus 20. So there's not actually much difference between my voice and the background noise. So this could get challenging. Let's see what happens. Yeah, so exactly what I said at the end there, that gap of quote unquote silence where there was a lot of noise outside, it didn't cut that. I'll test this tomorrow. I'm going to close off for today. I'm going to test this tomorrow and use one of the videos when I'm inside where silence is silence. So then it will have completely, you know, near zero noise levels to work with, and we'll take a look again and see how it goes. That was pretty good though, like in terms of keeping the pace of the video, and it not being too much of a hot fire hose of me speaking, which no one wants. I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll test it again tomorrow, see what we get, but that's pretty good. And we've got those levers to tweak now in the config, so I don't need to get Claude to do anything here. I can just play with these until I'm happy. So I want to run a few test scenarios, different types of videos, see what it does, and then we'll kind of settle on something that is about right and run with that. There's a couple of other ideas I can think of for this that might make it a bit better. And I mean, the main one is going to be if I, and this will be a problem, like if I've got something on screen that I want to rest on, or it's doing something, I mean, more often than not, I don't want that because it's like waiting for a page to load or something. Those are the bits you want to get cut out. But sometimes there's going to be cases where there might be stuff on screen that I legitimately want to present. And if I'm not talking, it's just going to cut it out. So that's going to be a problem. Not going to worry about it for now. What I'm wondering is whether FFmpeg can detect changes in the video. So can FFmpeg detect, is the video actually moving? Because if I'm like this and I'm not talking, like nothing is moving on screen. My cursor is moving on screen, but other than that, like the ratio of stuff that's moving on screen is 0 effectively. So from a visual perspective, you'd go, hey, the video is not changing, cut it. But if I'm not talking and it's silent, but the screen is like changing a lot, that I would want it to potentially preserve. So let's ask the question. Let's go to Claude. Can FFmpeg detect how much each part of the video is changing, e.g. static versus motion? Because this answer will give me my yes or no. Yes! Freeze detect. There you, this is what I mean. Like, it's just freaking amazing, FFmpeg. So freeze detect detects static frozen segments where frames aren't changing. So what I could do is I could run this at the same time we do the generate timestamps, and then I'd have 2 sets of data. And essentially what I'd do is go, if that freeze detect if it's not frozen where there's a silent timestamp, don't cut it. Scene change detection detects cuts major changes. That's cool. So that will be like the visuals just completely change. I won't use that now. It won't be useful for what I'm doing, but I can see how that would be useful. And then motion estimation filters that can expose per frame motion vectors. Signal stats outputs per frame stats, including difference from previous frame. Yeah, that's kind of the thing I thought might be a capability. It knows about my pipeline. There you go. It's already given me the code to run. Boom. This would be great for automatically identifying boring static sections to cut or speed up in your editing pipeline. Ooh, that could get interesting as well. So doing speed ups. But the thing is, I'm going to be doing a lot of screen recording, like, vibe coding like this. So unfortunately, the visuals are going to be kind of boring. So, hey. That's the price of doing business, I guess. But this is awesome. So I'm going to put this in the kind of to-do bucket for now. And then I'll look at this at a later stage. I'm not interested in it now. I do want to see this whole thing end to end, see what it does to kind of some real videos before we try and get too clever. But yeah, that's great. Awesome progress. And we'll pick up in the next video on the LUTs. And then getting into the transcript, which will be dealing with OpenAI and Whisper.